So what are the key things to get right and the risks to avoid in any digitisation strategy?
Hi, and thanks, and hello to everyone that's joined today, and thank you very much for inviting me on. It's a fairly broad question to start with, so I'll probably confine it to 4 or 5 key points. I think the first and most obvious point I'd say is being absolutely crystal clear at the outset in terms of what you're trying to achieve, and particularly understanding and establishing both measures of success and landmarks along the way, and appropriate check-in points. I think the second is making sure you're engaging with the right parts of the organisation at the right time, really clear on scope, and being really clear at the outset, engaging with the right stakeholders. I think I can say from experience that looking to retrofit to accommodate stakeholders or often incidental parts of the group that are brought in post the scoping stage is exponentially more difficult or potentially more time consuming and can have broader impact. So would say clearly getting right parts of the organisation, right time, really important. I think as well, understanding what's the investment appetite, and particularly understanding investment appetite, it will typically be a multi-year commitment, and understanding and seeing that as a multi-year commitment and something to, that you understand and bake in at the outset of the process. And I think probably the if you wanted a what to avoid, I think implementing or extending obsolete platforms or processes where there's an alternative, and making sure you're scoping in a way that is fully future-proofed. I think that would be my fourth. I think if I just had one other to say, I always think about how it's being delivered. Is it partnerships, is it in-house, outsourced? Clearly, lots of different models and different ways of looking at it. I would say as well, it's partnerships become an ever more prevalent part of the way we look to deliver digitalisation. I think understanding and making sure you've got aligned values, aligned ways of working, and really investing the time in getting to understand and getting to know your partners right at the outset, I'd say is also something that will pay off many times over through the process.
Yang, perhaps you could come back on that particular question.
Yes, definitely. And I want to, first of all, thank you, Treasury Today Group, for providing us a great platform to bounce ideas. And this is a critical topic. I think it's critical for many industries. But let me share a little bit of the experience that we are going through in my current company, Kraft Heinz. I think many companies talk about digitization. It's really critical for us to reflect upon why. Because many companies, many industries, many functions are being impacted one way or the other by the technology. Some are more existential than the others, or some functions are being impacted more existentially than others. But for us is to determine what are the disruption really is, has the biggest impact, and what type of disruptions are here for the long run. So, for example, in the food industry, a couple of decades ago, online shopping was picking up, but was not a forceful trend. However, during this pandemic, we have seen that consumers' buying behavior has structurally changed, and we also do believe that it's here for good. So I think we should first and foremost reflect upon how we're impacted and why we're embracing digitalization. So having the right scope, and oftentimes the right scope is tailor-made to a company, to how it is impacted, to a company's capability, maturity curve, and also towards where the company's strategic direction is heading to. And also echo on what Andrew was just saying, digitalization can easily become a multi-year project. And it's very critical. When we were doing this in-house, we break them down into critical and digestible milestones so that we can clearly identify what are the small wins, how do the small wins add up to the direction we want to go, and measure the return on investment. Because we can easily talk about massive investment and the low-hanging fruit, or the concrete return on the investment is something that for us is very critical. And the last one, John, to your earlier question, should this be a top-level mandate? For us, it's a critical governance issue. we do have the board mandate. We do have top management, or some of us have, very heavy weight in terms of our KPIs. But I do think the well-set governance model all the way from the top, mandated by the top, but also well cascaded through the organization is really important. So we have a management, project management team. We have a dedicated resources. We have a hiring plan to the places where lack of critical talents, et cetera. Those are the governance model and the KPIs that we share across multiple different functions, so that can really help us to jumpstart this digitalization path.